So, lactate monitors. Sounds weird. Apparently, they're the most important revolution to hit the pro peloton since heart rate monitors. I bet they're going to be banned. So these are new devices that continuously track your lactate levels. Lactate is a substance made continually by muscle tissue and red blood cells. It's really important because it carries oxygen from your lungs to other parts of your body. When you exercise, the amount of lactate you produce increases. During vigorous exercise, there comes a tipping point where the amount of lactate you produce outpaces your body's ability to use and clear it. So it builds up in the blood and muscles, and you feel pretty rough. This point is often called the lactate threshold. When you're over that threshold, you'll typically see a decline in performance. So riders' lactate thresholds are often used at the top level to inform training decisions and base your zones and training plans on.
Do you know the difference between lactate threshold and an FTP?
They are very, very similar. FTP is a lot. There's different definitions. FTP, the way Coach Ken has put it to me, should be the power you can put out for an hour. So all of the tests, ramp tests, 20-minute tests, minus 5%, all of that is trying to replicate that. The best thing is doing a proper lactate test where you actually find out what you... But most people's lactate thresholds and FTPs are very, very similar.
Yeah, my understanding is an FTP test is attempting to work out what your lactate threshold is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mathematical method for roughly trying to work it out, whereas an actual lactate test is going to tell you what the actual exact figure is.
Exactly. Well, you can do an FTP test at home, whereas even a coach has to have some sort of qualification or medical training because it involves pricking the rider's finger, taking a blood sample, or it's just a tiny blood sample while you're doing the test, in my experience, and then they'll put it through a little thing and it will give you a lactate reading every time you test it. So it's every 2 minutes or whatever. And you have to have you'll have to be qualified in some way to have a proper sharps disposal bin and all of this kind of stuff. So if a coach is doing that, they've gone through proper training, hopefully.
Yeah.
No one's expected to, you're not going to do that at home, are you? So people opt for things like the Zwift ramp test because it's easier to do.
Yeah, I feel like it's the sort of thing that normal people are fine using an FTP, and the top end, the top 0.1% of actual proper professional athletes are probably always doing lactate tests anyway, but in a much less convenient way than this kind of new technology which is popping up.
If they're around the team, when I did a training camp. I was on a training camp with Astana and did a couple of rides with them, and they were in the early season testing phase, and they were doing both lactate tests and they were doing 20-minute tests up mountains as well in Calpe. So there'll be an outdoor test where they weren't checking lactate, and then the indoor one they were checking lactate. So there's a mix.
Yeah.
I guess what equipment they have, because the lactate test, they have to have the expert there. Mm-hmm. They have to have the sports scientist there, or the coach, or whoever it might be. So it's less repeatable and accessible. But if you're a pro and you want to if they probably are testing a few times through the season, not always going to have a sports scientist guy there.
Yeah.
But yeah. We asked our pal, Will Gerling, who's the team nutritionist for EF Pro Cycling, what he thought about continuous lactate monitors and their potential impact on training and results. He told us that a lot of pro teams already monitor lactate levels closely, and they'll be doing that with the finger prick thing. Many will do this by doing stuff like ramp tests and taking frequent lactate samples through the test. So the only difference a monitor would make would be the more frequent readings. He said that he could see the benefits as it gives you a much more accurate picture of where lactate is accumulating, and in conjunction with data on blood glucose levels, gives you a really good picture of a rider. This allows them to make more accurate, tailored recommendations in terms of training and fueling. I think it's going to make the lives of the team staff much easier, and the riders' lives marginally easier, because having your finger stabbed repeatedly is annoying.
It's very unpleasant, isn't it?
It's not great. Yeah, I mean, it would become like, oh, it's that again.
Yeah.
It's minor, but it would be annoying.
And the data is going to be, well, massive in comparison.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming...
Is it like a thing, like a diabetes blood sugar sort of deal?
I'm assuming that's the case.
Yeah.
So there's already monitors where you basically stick it on your arm. It looks like a nicotine patch, and it monitors your blood glucose levels. There's a couple of different companies that are doing them to monitor health. There's some companies doing them for just like normal people being able to monitor their health. And I'm assuming what this technology is essentially that, but with the added option of also monitoring lactate, which for the very small number of people at the absolute top of the pyramid, it makes sense. It's the sort of thing that if I was still training, I definitely wouldn't need, but it's the sort of thing that I'd be like, well, that's cool to know.
Would it be worth it for the inconvenience of the thing? Like, does it feel invasive? My brain, while you were saying all that, was just going, how many years till Garmin release some sort of microchip that you put in your wrist, and then it just does everything that a wearable does, and it measures all your blood glucose and lactate and everything?
Well, it would have to be more than a chip. There'd have to be a lot of sensors in there.
Yes. Futuristic ones.
Well, the future is that we become cyborgs, so yeah.
Oh, cool. But potentially we already are cyborgs. I've never seen you not holding your phone. You're even holding it now off camera.
Literally not. And I'm also on camera.
You got 2 phones. I know you got 2 phones.
Neither of them I have.
One you're always holding with your third arm, because you got a fake arm there.
My cyborg arm.
Yeah. When it comes to how much impact it will have, the pro community is divided. Astana's director of performance told news site Velo they'd be an evolution in training and account for huge fitness gains. Others say the in-training application may be limited, or that it will take you years of context to truly understand and fully utilize the numbers processed. The UCI has an in-competition ban on these tracking devices. Of course I do. But there is no regulation on the use in training, which I feel like the benefits come from having them in training and outside of competition anyway.
I find it odd that someone would suggest that it will take years to utilize the numbers produced. I feel like surely there's enough knowledge and science already done on lactate for them to get instant benefit.
Mm-hmm. That does seem weird.
Why you seem to suggest that it was obvious that the UCI would ban it?
Because they ban everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, purely that.
They haven't banned heart rate monitors.
They haven't, have they?
No. Will it trickle down to the consumer market? I think yes, because it's the type of product that's going to be so easy for massive corporates to sell to normal people. The Zoe is a company that do like a blood glucose thing, and they're really driving it in like the health market space, and it's got a subscription model like everything does these days. I imagine this is going to appear in the consumer space. Is it needed? No. Will people buy it?
Probably.
Yes. It's one of those things, you know, if you're training a lot, it's the kind of thing where I'd be like, well, it would be cool to know. I definitely wouldn't need it, and I'm definitely not going to get it now, but it's the type of thing 10 years ago I would have been like, yeah, that's sick. Let's get on that.
If there was a thing that meant that I could know my FTP all the time without having to do a test and hurting myself on an indoor bike, then I would do it.
That is interesting.
But you still have to do a test, so...
Well, would you though? It's quite,
I don't know.
It's interesting that maybe that's where it'll evolve. Is actually you can have like a 12-week block of training which doesn't require regular testing, and you're actually just training, purely training.
Garmin Watch or Garmin Connect. I don't know which one is doing the calculation, but Garmin doesn't. You don't have to do a test in order for it to kick out an estimated FTP. If it had this data as well, it could more accurately guess your FTP after every ride.
Well, arguably it isn't a guess.
It's a good estimate, very good estimate.
Well, with a lactate monitor, surely it's not an estimate. It's a factual figure.
Yeah, it's probably a formula.